Shalom. Shalom and welcome. Welcome to End Time Unity Protocols, a series of messages reflecting on specific details and tasks that we will possibly face during these end times. Checks and balances. My brothers and sisters, the scriptures tell us to examine all things, to prove all things. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Symmanayah. This is the 21st installment to this series. I say again, shalom and welcome to you, O listener, to these words. If you are one who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, I consider you my brother and my sister. As end times ramp up, my brothers and sisters, we will begin to discover that there is much work to be done in order to fulfill what is necessary regarding the 144,000 Hebrews and great multitude mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter. In this installment, I present why it is important to discern there are stages for fulfilling what is written regarding the final Exodus, or being gathered from the four corners of the earth. There are processes in which many fail to talk about. Why? Because many are unable to discern or unlearn, and for whatever reason, the Most High have not revealed it to them. But in due season, my brothers and sisters, it will become crystal clear as to what is expected and what must be done. Time will prove that there are those who will be and have been as bookends. In other words, representing beginnings and ends. There will be those who will be as supports, confirming and reaffirming the flowing actions directed by the set-apart spirit of Yahuah, sent in Yahusha's name, in order to bring about the fulfillment of what is written, what is promised, what is prophesied regarding this set-apart journey. There will be those who will be as bridges, used to contribute to the building up and the fulfillment of end-time gathering, but will not be among the ranks of those gathered from the four corners of the earth before the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach. So in other words, my brothers and sisters, this installment is to bring your attention to bookends, supports, bridges. And one of these will fit the description of the actions we take as we move into obedience to the Most High. I am compelled to present the case that these realities, bookends, supports, and bridges, that these realities will prove to be among those gathered by the Almighty Father Yahuah, chosen, refined, discerning, and understanding what must be done regarding his promise to his children. Bookends, supports, and bridges are critical for the building up of an awakening nation, especially for those who will be part of the gathering from the four corners of the earth. The realities of what is written will become more clear in the days ahead. We will face the most challenging times, and it will be wise to seek to discern every moment, every task being given to us by the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name. We will discern chosen leaders executing his directions, his plan, as we are given it, and or as we receive it. I ask you to be very prayerful as you listen to this. Be very patient, my brothers and sisters. You will discover soon, each of us will discover soon and very soon, that the choices we make will prove to contribute to the fulfillment of end-time prophecies like we probably have never imagined. One of the biggest challenges we are about to experience is what it means to truly prepare as fashioned by the Spirit of Yahuah, sent in Yahusha's name. In order to discern what is directed, it will require total pursuit of worship and obeying the Almighty Father, total pursuit to do his will. As I press into this installment of End Time Unity Protocols, with the focus on bookends, supports, and bridges, I want you to ask yourself the following question. Can you and will you support a set-apart children being gathered together so that they can journey to the promised land to fulfill being gathered from the four corners of the earth? Can you or will you support such an event? Even if you came to the knowledge that you may not be among the ranks of those gathered before the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach. Can you support someone journeying past and through your city and you're not being able to take that journey with them. You see, my brothers and sisters, this is something we must realize. There were people that came before us as bookends. They made sacrifices. They preserved the teachings of the Almighty Father, and they passed on the teachings and practices. They passed on the need to lean on the Almighty Father. As bookends, my brothers and sisters, sometimes the bookends from the beginning to the end do not experience the things that those who are in between will experience. Can you be a supporter of a set-apart brother or sister? That spirit is being stirred, that is being drawn to relocate to a specific location to be in position for this final exodus. Will you support such a plan, such an endeavor, if indeed the plan is made known to you? Can you be a supporter of the things that the Most High requires to build up his children, his nation? You see, we can be set apart children, but we may not always be participants in the outcome directly. Can you be a bridge? For a bridge may be one that hands off information, receives information, hands off information to someone that's passing through, passing by. A bridge may be one asked to shelter in place and echo the voice, the calls, the warnings, the instructions to those who are not gathered from the four corners of the earth. Those who may be called and chosen to look death in the face and receive martyrdom, become martyrs for Yahusha's name. Can you support the endeavors of the Most High? Pray earnestly, my brothers and sisters, because not everyone will be among the ranks of those who will be gathered. Who among us is talking about how to face death? Look death in the face and yet shout hallelujah. Who among us understands losing this life for Yahusha's sake, for his name, is the most reasonable service? Sacrificing ourselves for Yahusha's name, sacrificing ourselves before Yahuah, becoming his living servants, his living set-apart children. What say you, oh, listen to these words? Are you ready to get into this bookend, support, and bridges installment? Consider the beginning. Allow me to read Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, the Almighty One created the heavens and the earth. Dropping down to that was 1:1 of Genesis. Genesis 1:26 and 27 says, and the Almighty One said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over the creeping creatures that creep on the earth. And the Almighty One created the man in his image, and in the image of the Almighty One he created him, male and female he created them. My brothers and sisters, bookends. These are beginning bookends. These are the bookends. These are the beginnings of our life, our journey towards the Most High. And there were many teachings and practices passed down through many generations over the years. Some have become distorted, some have not. Whatever the case may be, O Yasharal, we have awakened, and there are those who are awakened. Let me also read 1 John 1 and 2, which talks about the beginning. John 1:1 and 1:2. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the Almighty One, and the Word was the Almighty One. He was in the beginning with the Almighty One. Beginnings, my brothers and sisters. Let us be mindful of Revelation 1:8 and 22:13. Revelation 1:8 and 22:13, which informs us that the Almighty Father is indeed the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. And in order to pass things down, my brothers and sisters, from the beginning up to the end, there was support for the teachings of the Almighty Father, support for sound doctrine. You see, my brothers and sisters, there's wickedness going on among those who would have chosen, or who have chosen to enlarge their numbers by building compromising camps, using words like Yes, we're in unity, but we're not going to talk about doctrine. We got differences of doctrine. Doctrine means teaching. How can we not look for those who have the same like mind, understanding and receiving the teachings from the Almighty Father? Through his set apart spirit sent in Yahusha's name, the teachings are important, for these are the supports that aid in passing down how to engage the Most High, or should I say, how to yield to him, how to discern one another, whether we are indeed following the same path towards maturity and set apartness. My brothers and sisters, doctrine is important. If anyone's saying, let's put the doctrines aside, you may strongly want to consider coming away from such. Seek those who understand. Seek those who share sound doctrine, who demonstrate being used by the Almighty Father, who demonstrate being led by the Spirit of Yahusha, and is teaching things that are correct. Who is aware of the life in Proverbs 4, 1 and 2? Proverbs 4, 1 and 2. It reads as follows. Children, listen to the discipline of a father, and give attention to no understanding. For I gave you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah. Torah is the teachings of the Almighty Father. It stretches far beyond just the 5 books of Moses. Before there was Moses or Moshe, there was instruction from the Almighty Father. Since Moshe, there are instructions. We receive living instructions daily, whether we acknowledge it or recognize it. There are those among us who speak in set apartness, who demonstrate set apartness. My brothers and sisters, sound instruction, sound living Torah, sound instruction, sound teachings. These are the supports that contribute towards the bridges to pass one information to receive on one side and pass it over to the next side. Sure, there are the times we will be in one location, sharing, giving, subjecting ourselves to the will of the Almighty Father. And those are times we will be as bridges, my brothers. Romans 16, 17, 18 says, now I call upon you, brothers, watch out for those who cause division and stumbling, contrary to the teachings which you have learned, and turn away from them. For such ones do not serve our Master Yahushua Messiah, but their own stomach, and by smooth words and flattering speech they deceive the hearts of the innocent. My brothers and sisters, let us be mindful that in Matthew's, it talks about the Mashiach bringing division. That's a division that functions in a way to bring about acts of set apartness. And let me see here. Bear with me just 1 second. You see, my brothers and sisters, there are the swift talkers among us. And the swift talkers will have you believe one verse and ignore another, or ignore one verse and believe another, not sharing with you how to interpret and understand such writings in whole and with completeness. That's the swift talker, the undiscerning, the unlearning. You see, my brothers and sisters, in the 10th chapter of Matthew, it talks about where the Mashiach, Yahusha, brings about division. There are times, my brothers and sisters, when we must come away. There are times when there will be purgings. Let me continue, O Yasharal. 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17 say, all scripture is breathed by the Almighty One and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for setting straight, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of the Almighty One might be fitted, equipped for every good work. You see, my brothers and sisters, teachings, doctrines, but doctrines that are breathed by the Almighty Father. And that breathed is saying, as we read the scriptures, his spirit makes them alive. By his words, by his breath, we live. By his breath, we discern. By his breath, we speak the things that the Most High gives us, including teachings. Regarding endings, there are beginnings and there will be endings. Habakkuk 2:3 says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will surely not tarry. Proverbs 19, that was Habakkuk 2:3. Proverbs 19:20 say, listen to counsel and accept discipline, so that you are wise in your latter end. You see, my brothers and sisters, sometimes we listen, sometimes we receive, and sometimes the purpose of the things we receive may be to be applied to the latter end. End times are here, O Yasharal. Are you aware of the different processes and details we must go through to fulfill what is written? Isaiah 10:23 say, for the Master Yahuah of hosts is making a complete end, as decided in the midst of all the earth. My brothers and sisters, the call is now to begin to discern the instructions that are going forth now. Yes, there are times that we are looking at our history, learning more about our history. There are times when we spend learning more about end time prophecies. But there are times where we must also discern what is expected of us now. Let me read Isaiah 46:9-13. It says, remember the former events of old, for I am the All, and there is no one else, the Almighty One, and there is no one like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from the old that which has not yet been done, saying, my counsel does stand, and all my delight I do. Calling the bird of prey from the east, the man who executes my counsel from a distant land. Indeed, I have spoken it. I also bring it to pass. I have planned it. I also do it. Listen to me, you stubborn-hearted, who are far from righteousness. I shall bring my righteousness near. It is not far off, and my deliverance is not delayed. And I shall give deliverance in Zion, my esteem to Yasharal. My brothers and sisters, bookends, supports, bridges. Can you see how these connect to what I am presenting? There will be a final exodus, and I speak of it often. I invite you to read Isaiah 11:12, which talks about gathering Yasharal from the four corners of the earth. I invite you to read Isaiah 11:12. Also read Isaiah 43:5-7. Isaiah 43:5-7. And be mindful, my brothers and sisters. People will have you think that means everybody's being gathered. Everybody that's set apart will be gathered from the four corners of the earth before the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach. This is not so. Keep in mind, Isaiah 43:7 says, all those who are called by my name, who I've created, formed, even made for my esteem. You see, there are individuals who have been chosen. They have been made to fulfill that final exodus, and not all will go. If you doubt this, my brothers and sisters, consider what the Mashiach said, that some will be led astray and some will be killed for his name. Jeremiah 23:3 also speaks of being gathered, my brothers and sisters. Therefore, I shall gather the remnant of my flock out of all the lands where I've driven them, and shall bring them back to their fold, and they shall bear and increase. That was Jeremiah 23:3. Ezekiel 11:14-17 also speaks of being gathered, my brothers and sisters. The time will come when some will be as bookends, passing on the information to those who will take it and take it further. And there'll be those who will receive and pass, just as bridges, to keep the flow of set apart instructions moving. Again, not all will be with all in these final days before the physical return. And yes, there will be those who will face physical death. My brothers and sisters, this journey will become complete when we go before the judgment seat of the Almighty Father. Know this, from the beginning to the end, there are those who have preserved the ways of the Almighty Father. I mentioned that earlier. Believe it or not, our forefathers who passed on writings and teachings of the Almighty Father were as the front bookends in our lives and contributed to the preservation of what is set apart to be passed on from one generation to the next. Make no mistake, there will be beginnings and there will be ends and there will be the things that occur in between. Each of us have a task. Each of us will discover specific responsibilities that we have. O Yasharal, are you ready? Are you ready, O listener, to these words? Keep in mind, there are those who have come before us, as I said, and there will be those who may come after us. But I am compelled to believe we are the last generation before the physical return of Yahusha HaMashiach. I am compelled to believe we will soon witness the emergence of the 144,000 Hebrews in a great multitude which no man will be able to number, rising up in the midst of the great tribulation. We will soon witness, my brothers and sisters, how such a large number can still be a remnant. And if you're listening to me for the first time, I'll say again, you can have a remnant that could be tens of millions of people. But when you compare it to the large population, the total population on the planet, it is less than 1%. It is a fraction. It is a remnant. So many people, and I've mentioned, I hear people all the time say it's going to be a small number. But if you start asking, well, what is that small number? Some think it's going to be tiny. I say to you, O Yasharal, arise and awake. It will be massive in size. Many people, millions of people that the Most High will begin together from the four corners of the earth. But again, when you compare it to the total population, it will be less than 1%. Pray, O Yasharal. My brothers and sisters, Matthew 24th chapter explains how there will be people led astray. He even says in the 24th chapter of Matthew how some of us will be killed for his sake, his name. 2 Thessalonians 2, 3, and 4 talks about the falling away that will come first. My brothers and sisters, there's much to be done. We will experience some of the most trying of times. I cannot mention enough. I'm compelled to also present the following to you, O Yasharal. This is something that we must be mindful of and seek the life and the strength of this passage, for we will face times when we must decide. And this verse will come to mind. It will echo in our spirits and minds. Matthew 16:25. For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it, and whoever loses his life for my name's sake shall find it. My brothers and sisters, what are you ready in your mind to face, your body to face? What are we preparing for as a set apart, awakening nation? Are we seeking to know and understand how to identify being drawn by the Almighty Father, Yahuah? Are we aware that we will be gathered at various points, different geographic locations, and move intermittently? I mention often that forced migrations, forced movement is over the horizon. It has begun already in many parts of the world. There are those in the Western Hemisphere, specifically in the United States, possibly in Canada, who do not see the intense migration, the movement of people. You see, my brothers and sisters, famine and pestilence as a result of what has been prophesied has begun. Climate change is just a mechanism for which brings about famine and pestilence. Many people that you see moving, migrating to other parts of the world, it's because largely of food and fresh water. The basics, the very basics. This is why in some cases you have individuals migrating because they'll soon take a low wage so that they can live versus to stay in a location where they would die of starvation. There are parents that love their children. There are children that love their parents. There are individuals being led by the Most High to the area where there is land, where there is plenty, where there is food and fresh water. But I say to you, as I have stated on many occasions, the habitable places on this planet will roll up like a scroll, forcing man, women, and children, forcing every living creature back towards the region where life began. And we will begin to witness the completion of what has been foretold years ago, O Yasharal. My brothers and sisters, soon and very soon, we will witness the Spirit of Yahuah, harden hearts, but we will also witness times that he will soften hearts. He will guide those who he has given favor and allowed to receive wealth in finances, wealth in resources, wealth in talents, abilities, good health. The Most High will make known why we've received favor, why we've received any wealth that we have. The Most High will make known what we are to do with that. It is not always favor just for the person in the mirror. Soon and very soon, my brothers and sisters, supports to the end time prophecy fulfillment, supports will rise up. Individuals might say, I don't think I'm going to be going, although I desire, but I will help finance, or I will help teach you how to navigate as you take your journey, or I will provide you with the transportation, or I will provide temporary housing so you can rest here until you continue on with your journey. There's a lot that's getting ready to happen, O Yasharal. I say to you that it has begun, but it will ramp up in such a way that the entire world will witness such a phenomenon that I speak of. You may just be a beneficiary of something necessary for completing your assignment and contributing to others, or you may be a benefactor. So you may receive as a beneficiary, or you may be a benefactor and be the one that's giving. Giving and receiving, functioning as a bridge, functioning as a support, maybe a bookend, depending on what vantage point you're looking at a start and as you look towards the end. Oh Yasharal, these words will begin to make sense to some quicker than others. Making such tough decisions and choosing to serve the Almighty Father. Let me ask you, do you love the Mashiach? Do you really love him? Visit John 21, 15 through 17, and you will see an example of when the Mashiach questioned Shimon, Kepha, or some will say Simon Peter, and asked him, do you love me? And he responded, telling them to feed my lambs, feed my sheep. My brothers and sisters, have we come to where we can discern what it takes to feed the sheep of the Mashiach, to demonstrate our love for him? Our love for Yahushua Mashiach will be put to the test in these end times. Make no mistake, my brothers and sisters. We will discover why and what to do with the valuable things Abba Yahuah has given us. We will discover the need to disperse resources as we begin to see a set-apart awakening nation begin to take shape. There are real, practical, natural, literal resources that will be exchanged, dispersed, and or given for the building up of end-time prophecy participants to fulfill so much, my brothers and sisters, from the standing strong and becoming martyrs for Yahusha's name, to the taking the harsh journeys as we pass through communities, as we move from point to point until we reach that region where the set-apart mountain of the Almighty Father exists. For I believe the Almighty Father has shown me, and I will present more and more in details in the coming of days. I will soon begin to make myself visible as I am directed by the Most High. I will seek to come closer and closer to those who are drawn, as I believe the Most High directs me, to yield to those who are chosen leaders, and to rise up and be strong if chosen to be a leader. Each of us, my brothers and sisters, have a task, and every one of us are valuable and important for the building up of the plan, for the supporting of the plan of the Almighty Father. We will learn how to shout hallelujah in whatsoever state we find ourselves. We will reach into our spirits and know that he's holding our hands and that we are with him. Yasharal or Yasharal, I ask you again, can you and will you support set-apart children, your brothers or sisters who will be chosen to fulfill the final exodus? If you knew you were not going to make that final exodus before the physical return of Yahushua Mashiach. Think about the sacrifices and contributions individuals have made for you to be where you are. And ask yourself, can you contribute? Will you support? Will you be able to discern? Make no mistake, my brothers and sisters, we must vet, we must examine all things to see if this is indeed the steps, the service, the contributions that the Most High has given us to give to others. Let us rise to the occasion, O Yasharal. Let us remember the parable of the talents. And I invite you to visit Matthew's 25th chapter, and you will see how favor was given. And there were three. One buried the favor, the blessings, the talents. The other two utilized their talents such that they received even more to work with. Matthew 25th chapter. Visit it. Keep in mind specifically the 29th verse. It says, for to everyone who possesses, more shall be given, and he shall have overflowingly. But from him who does not possess, even what he possesses shall be taken away. My brothers and sisters, let me say this very clearly. Please listen to these words. Do not let mere words be the cause of you sharing the talents, sharing your resources, sharing what you have been given by the Most High erroneously. Don't let the words cause you to just start sharing and say, well, I give to this fellowship, to this group, to this camp, to this cause. Don't let mere words drive you. It will be wise to vet, to examine and pray and seek what the Spirit is directing you to do, what the Spirit is fashioning you to do. You may be a receiver, receiving things from others for the purpose of dispersing it to others. I will speak more and more on these matters, my brothers and sisters, but it's important to be prayerful and seek to discern what the Most High is saying to you regarding these words and more. Be encouraged, O Yasharal. Set apart children of the Almighty Father Yahuah. Our redemption draws near. Over the past 8 years, I have produced message just sound only, audio only. There are few that I have met in person or vis-a-vis spoke to through Skype or Dual or Facebook. In other words, I know it's not about me, but I believe the time is coming to become more up close, more personable as I am being led. And each of us will find times where we will come more personable, more visible, more accessible as we discover what the Most High have for each of us, individually and collectively. My brothers and sisters, I know, and I'll say this again, it's not about me, but it is about worshiping and obeying the Almighty Father, of which I seek to do his will. And I will therefore seek to be all that he would have me to be and echo his presence in my life, his presence in directing my footsteps. For I do not know of any direction to turn. And I believe many of us, as we are awakened, as we are strengthened in the power and might of set-apartness by the Almighty Father in Yahushua's name, we will begin to realize that there will come times when we will move far beyond social media and other electronic platforms. We will move away from current locations physically. We will move away from compromising practices and teachings. Physically and spiritually, my brothers and sisters, we will receive all that is necessary to bring about unity in these end times. The 144,000 Hebrews or Abrim, along with a great multitude that are together made one by Yahusha HaMashiach, will rise. And each of the 12 tribes mentioned in Revelation chapter 7 will be made known. And upon that fulfillment, we will all come. We who are set apart by the Almighty Father will come to be known as one nation. Under the Almighty Father's guidance in Yahusha's name, one nation, we will become known as set apart Yasharal, the children of obedience. My brothers and sisters, pray and seek to discern, for all that is necessary will be fulfilled, and there is no one or no obstacles that can stop us. The time is now to identify. Are you a bookend? Do you support? Are you a bridge for the things that are going before us? Real actions that make our forefathers who were obedient proud of us. That will make our children happy that we walk in obedience. As they grow of age, they would recognize the why things were done in the way they were done. They would recognize the importance of bookends, supports, and bridges. Let us not take one another for granted, O Yasharal. Let us prepare to rise up, for soon and very soon, movement will exist all over the planet. And we who are last to experience that will one day wake up and realize that the movement we see in South America, the movement we see on the continent of Africa, the movement we see in China, the movement we see in Europe, the movement we see in Australia, the movement we see in the outer parameters of habitable places that point to the promised land will enlarge, O Yasharal. There's more details. There's more to receive. There's more to give. What say you, O listen to these words? Are you ready to awaken to the now? To what must be done now? What must be done going forward? Be encouraged, O Yasharal, for by the might and power of the Almighty Father, each of us will discern the tasks, the abilities, and the resources that are given to us. We will discern their purpose and execute the commands from the Most High. Till next time, I invite your communications. I invite your questions and comments, if and only if you believe you are being led to do so. I invite you to continue to witness the messages with each installment that I present as I am compelled by the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name. For I will continue to press forward, my brothers and sisters, and I encourage you to do the same. The realities of this journey are unfolding before us. We are witnessing things that people from days of old would have wished they could have witnessed. Pray, O Yasharal. Pray and trust that the Almighty Father will indeed guide us. He will stir our spirits, and he will make himself visible through those whom he chooses, and as he see fit. Until next time, O Yasharal, O set apart family, my brother, my sister, I say to you, in this awakening time, I bid you Shalum.